Hello everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to deal with the philosophies of the English, Enlightenment and Empiricism, and especially we'll talk about Francis Bacon, Thomas Hobbes, and John Locke. You'll find a file uploaded to our e-class, and the first part of it is in German, so for German-speaking people, it would be easier to access the contents, and we'll be able to talk about it in German if necessary. But now we're talking in English. These sessions take place because some of you have other courses at the same time and are not able to attend. But it's helpful and valuable because during this course you'll have the opportunity to see all the materials at your disposal. First of all, we talk about the predecessors, or better, about the precursors of the classical empiricist philosophers in England. Roger Bacon, he was a metaphysician in the late Middle Ages, not to confuse him with Francis Bacon, the later philosopher. So Roger Bacon was important because he opposed the earlier scholasticism and he promoted an empiricist attitude to knowledge. In general, this empiricist attitude distinguishes all thinking, all currents of thought, or most of them in the English-speaking world up to now. Then we have Duns Scotus, Scottish man, obviously, who advocated the primacy of the will over knowledge. Then we have William of Ockham, prominent representative of nominalism, who opposed speculative concepts. That is, the concepts which were prevalent in this classical medieval metaphysics. He opposed them, or at least the exaggerations, the improper use of them. And now we turn to Francis Bacon, who is a representative of empiricism, and an early one, of course. He developed a program for the renewal of human knowledge based on experience, experiments, and induction. Experience, experiments, these are similar concepts. Experiment is fundamentally based on experience. And induction is the process, so to say, of the generalization of the outcome of the contents of the empirical observation and control and trial and so on. This first phase of the modern empiricism in England is distinguished by the resumption of the long-known principle and already previously known principle constitutive of this whole current, nihil est in intellectu, quod non prius fuerit in sensu. We don't know who wrote it for the first time exactly, but we know that it was a belief commonly shared by many of these empirically thinking people. Nothing exists in our intellect, in our minds, which did not previously exist in our senses, in our sensual perception. And then we have the first major empiricist, philosopher who dealt with many subjects, comprehensive thought, Thomas Hobbes, who lived between 1588 and 1679. He defined philosophy prudently as the knowledge of effects from causes and of causes from observed facts, effects, which these facts are, on the other hand, effects of other causes. And so we have to be careful while observing and to be clever while generalizing the data of these observations. Philosophy should therefore concentrate on practically relevant predictions. This is a very strong statement. Philosophy should strive for predictions, and this is important for the development of scientific thought and for political action as well. Thomas Hobbes can be described as the first philosopher who was to apply and expand the new mechanistic method of explanation to all areas of philosophy. What we talked about before, this connection, mutual connection between causes and effects, this is the key feature of the mechanistic methods of thinking and explaining. This is the new current, this is the important turn, or if you like, the revolution in this early modern age. And this is opposed to the earlier Aristotelian teleological model of thought, which did, on the other hand, include this mechanistic approach, the connection between cause and effects, between especially the motive cause or the efficient cause, the cause of movement in general, and the effect of movement, but did not remain restrained to this aspect of reality. The Aristotelian way of thinking, on the other hand, was extended to include the final causes, cause finales, τελικά αίτια, telos meaning goal. So these scientists and philosophers were opposing the old teleological approach, which was predominant during the whole Middle Ages, by saying we do not understand reality as such if we are supposing the existence of final causes. Final causes have this particular disadvantage that they do not show their effects immediately, only in the long run, only later, so we cannot be sure about them. Instead of it, we concentrate on the mechanical causes, which are immediately obvious, and this is the main feature of scientific thought, according to them all. For Hobbes, the mechanistic way of thinking is closely linked to a strict materialism. Materialism, matter, the base of all reality. This is the part of reality, or the genuine reality, on which we have to focus and explore it for discovering this mechanistic, these efficient causes. In the area of political philosophy, particularly, Hobbes is also very famous. He wrote the Opus Magnum, Leviathan, according to the denomination of a biblical monster, a very powerful monster, oppressing people. But Hobbes gives to this notion a positive turn by saying state power must be so strong, like the Leviathan, the Bible, the Old Testament. This very strong power has to ensure the enforcement of the common interests of citizens, and if necessary, it must do this by using force, the mere force, the pure force, or the unrestricted force, but for a good cause, good purpose, the enforcement of the common interests of citizens, and by excluding the particular interests. The particular interests are the problem, the main problem. The egoistic behavior, as we will see. This is, in his view, absolutely necessary. That is the existence of this Leviathan, because people without an effective state power tend to use destructive violence. And Hobbes is very explicit in declaring the evils resulting from these unlimited strive for particular interests. People live, if they do not know the central state power, in the state of nature, status naturae, a common Latin term at that time. And a state of nature means that every person is intent on exterminating their fellow human beings. And in this context, it's famous, he's saying that homo homini lupus, an old Latin expression. Every person, every human is a wolf to other people. If every one of them is looking for the imposition of his, her own interests, private or particular interests. And even more stronger expression, bellum omnium contra omnes. This is the result of this state of nature. Everyone is pursuing his, her own interest, so everyone is combating everyone, is waging wars against the others, war of everyone against everyone. And Hobbes is famous for these positions. Later, we have John Locke, the major figure, the empiricism, a classical philosopher. Today we'll talk about him, and then we have two more representatives for the next time, George Berkeley and David Hume. But John Locke is a classical philosopher who offered interesting and satisfactory solutions to all major problems of philosophy. He was a universally educated man. He was a physician, a doctor, a natural scientist. He was accustomed with all scientific progress in his time, and also a politician defending the interests of the new class, newly emerging class, the bourgeois class. He had a friendly relationship to a rich patron and was forced to leave the country twice due to political vicissitudes, political events unfavorable to him, because at that time the absolute monarchy was dominant, and the new class, the bourgeois class, Locke's class, did not yet have enough power. During Locke's lifetime, by the way, we have major turbulences, political turbulences, upheavals. We have the expulsion of the King Charles I, and then we have the very important Glorious Revolution, 1688, when the new class attains power equilibrium with the monarchy. And this is what distinguishes the English political system up to now. The monarchy was maintained and not overthrown as in France 1 century later, during the French Revolution. Locke is important for his main work concerning ontological and epistemological issues. An essay concerning human understanding was published in 1690, while Locke was a mature man. In this work, he develops a skeptical approach, and through this skepticism, similarly with Descartes, where we have this instrumental approach to skepticism in order to achieve a better result in philosophy, philosophical knowledge. This is the meaning of instrumental. The end, the final goal is the attainment of philosophical certainty. Every philosophical consideration, according to Locke, should first be an investigation into the power of the intellect and the objects that lie within its scope, in its sphere. One should not accordingly rely uncritically on the way in which things just appear. One should not believe appearances uncritically without questioning them, because they can deceive us, essential appearances. In contrast to his own skeptical approach, on the other hand, he repeatedly expresses his conviction that the world can be understood with mathematical precision using deductive methods. Deductive methods guarantee the precision, guarantee the truth, the truthfulness of scientific knowledge. This is the superficially speaking and thinking, the opposite of what Hobbes says and believes, or the complementary view. Deduction is the reversal of induction. We take as a point of departure general assumptions, and then we try to apply them to special cases. This is deduction. Induction, on the other hand, is when from special particular cases we try to reach general conclusions. Deductive methods is also important for Locke and can guarantee the scientific character of our knowledge. Locke, in general, can be described as a critical philosopher. You can see these approaches, these positions, these attitudes that we must question appearances, we must question any irresponsible belief coming upon to us. This is what distinguishes a critically thinking philosopher. Philosophizing is, by definition, critical procedure. About God, a very important issue. God plays no role in the logical establishment of the possibility of knowledge, according to Locke. This is something quite different from what Descartes was thinking and was trying to establish logically. Descartes was trying to establish in a logical, not metaphysical sense, the existence of God in order to guarantee the quality of our human knowledge. And Locke, on the other hand, on the contrary, believed that we do not have the need of God in order to establish our knowledge. This does not, of course, mean that we deny the existence of God, but it means that God is something else, something important for our ethical, moral conduct, maybe, like what Kant later said. God is not important for our knowledge, for the establishment, the grounding of our knowledge. For Locke, it is a matter of subjecting the entire human consciousness with its diverse content of impressions, volitions, ideas, etc., to a critical examination. This is what matters, the critical examinations. Philosophy is eager to receive, to deal with everything, virtually everything, any impression, any idea, etc. But philosophy, on the other hand, is obliged to subject any raw material to a critical examination. And the aim is, by implementing this critical examination, to reach satisfactory answers to the following basic questions. How do ideas and concepts reach consciousness in epistemological sense? What degree of certainty do the various ideas or representations have according to their origin? Here we have two variants of an expression, the term ideas or representations. Ideas, a Greek term of Greek origin, in German Ideen, and representations in German Vorstellungen. We must clarify that Locke and all the empiricists before Kant, who thought quite differently, used the term ideas in order to denominate, to describe the contents of our subjective perception or consciousness. And in this sense, ideas are quite similar to representations, Vorstellungen, anaparastasis or parastasis in Greek. We must make this sharp distinction here because ideas originally in Plato meant something existing independently of human conception or perception. It means in Plato that ideas are not, briefly speaking, are not subjective but mainly objective. And during the development of this empiricism, we have the, so to say, the subjectivation of the Platonic tradition. For Plato, for instance, the idea of a triangle was eternally existing, whether an individual was able to grasp it or not. This is, roughly speaking, the direction of thought, the Platonic one. But these important philosophers meant that every human was able to produce, to develop her own ideas, subjective conceptions. And these subjective conceptions are at first sight limitless, and we have to deal with them to come to terms with them somehow. So, Locke, as an empiricist, believes that there are no idee innate, innate ideas, eingeborene Ideen, emphytes idees. He rules them out, does not accept their existence. Descartes, on the contrary, was in favor of these innate ideas. The theoretical laws of thought, such as the law of identity and the law of the exclusion of contradiction in thoughts, law of contradiction, or the avoidance of contradiction, are not clear to us because they are innate ideas. This is what Descartes thought. This clear conceptions about these basic laws of thoughts for Locke are a product of the development of our thoughts during the years. So we have to be able to understand and apply these universal laws. They are not there for everyone, only for the cultivated, for the educated, for the clever people. In this regard, it is enough to take, this is a thought experiment for Locke, it is enough to take a close look at the mental state of savage peoples and children. They do not have a conception of these universal laws of thought. And this is, for Locke, enough to prove that these laws, as the fundamental presuppositions of our thoughts, are something we attain, we reach with our efforts. They are not innate ideas in any case. What appears to be innate, these laws that we possess instinctively, that's why we say it appears to be. This is, in fact, the late product of a long development of individual thought and of collective achievements. Without experience, this is what Locke believes, unlike Descartes, the soul of every human being at the beginning of its development is a tabula rasa. Tabula rasa, table where blackboards, everything is erased. There's no content. And later on, this content is achieved and accumulated. Very interesting in Locke is the classification of ideas. We produce, we get accustomed to ideas, and there are several levels of ideas. First of all, we have simple ideas, or at the same time, indivisible impressions. There's an example, a famous example he gives, the example of the sense the cold snow gives to us. We cannot divide this sense into further parts, so it's simple and indivisible impression or idea. And then we have the complex ideas, combinations of simple ideas. The latter include modes, substances, and relations. So modes, substances, and relations are parts of the set of the complex ideas. Ideas themselves too, but not simple ones. And these ideas refer to qualities, not substances. The qualities are either primary or secondary. The primary ones exist constantly. The secondary ones are subject to change. Primary ones, for instance, what Descartes says, extensio. The space every material object occupies, extension. This is a primary one, a primary quality. It does not change. On the other hand, if we talk about color or shape, etc., these ones are secondary. Smell, they can change the course of time. Another important distinction for Locke is the one between external and internal experience. External experience is sensation, what we sense if some object exerts an influence on us, external object, snow or whatever, stone falling or water flowing. But this is not all of it. We have, on the other hand, the internal experience, product of our mental activity. This is what Locke calls reflection with X. It's important to know reflection with CT in English. This is a commonly used word. Is a physical term physics, actually, referring to the movement of light, the reversal of these movements, distortion of the movements, direct movements. But reflection is the mental process. Reflexion, sagen wir auf Deutsch, Anastochasmos, or simply stochasmos, thought, in general. And if we talk about internal experience, then we're able to reach a further distinction between cognition, between knowledge stricto sensu, and will. Will is what we deliberately reach by our capability, by our faculty, cognitive faculty. It's not just what we think, but what we decide to think in some cases, some choices we make, which determine the whole process of thought. This is will in this epistemological sense, because, of course, we use will in the realm of ethics and politics, morals. What is Locke's attitude to realism and nominalism, which are similar concepts to empiricism? For Locke, there is a connection between subjective knowledge and objective reality. The eternal problem of philosophy, of ontology, subject and object, the two powerful opposites. Locke tries to establish a connection between them, and this is very logical, very plausible. Our knowledge is not arbitrary, nicht willkürlich, δεν είναι αυθαίρετη. It always has a reference to objective reality. And this is a strong thesis of him. Although the complete knowledge of substances remains fundamentally hidden from humans, we can achieve much in the realm of knowledge, we can know much, we can have satisfactory answers to fundamental questions, but there are limits in the development of knowledge. The last secrets of the existing reality of what Locke calls substances, this remains hidden to us. This is something many philosophers have in common, this awareness of the limits of our knowledge. And this has many consequences for each one, for each philosopher. With regard to language, he is of the opinion that words with general meanings have no equivalent in reality, which brings him close to the earlier nominalism. Nominalism, a current similar to empiricism, also that also had emerged in England. The English had always a distrust towards to very abstract speculative concepts, and nominalism was in favor of the view that every abstract concept, every word we use actually did only exist in our voice. The sounds we produce and had no equivalent in reality. For Locke, something similar seems to be the case. For instance, that we see an animal, but if we use an abstract term like animality, this animality does not exist in objective and material reality. It exists only in our subjective thought. Locke, as a philosopher, is also important in the branches of ethics and politics. He's famous as a political philosopher. He agrees with Hobbes that people by nature tend to behave selfishly or egoistically. If we let every human behave according to her own particular interests, then a war, comprehensive and endless war breaks out. This is something similar to what Hobbes also thought. And this constitutes for Locke the level of social coexistence, which both Locke and Hobbes refer to this state, this first level of wild social coexistence, or the inability to coexist. Actually, this is the state of nature for both of them. This is what they have in common, this belief that without political order we have the destruction of society. What has to be established instead of it is a civil or political state. And this political state, and this is now the difference from Hobbes, this political state, according to Locke, does not consist of oppression. Oppression is something we must refrain from. Oppression is acceptable for Hobbes if the right interests are to be secured and implemented, the common values of society. Oppression is acceptable, and that's why we have this powerful Leviathan for Hobbes. But for Locke, we have a more moderate model of political organization. The state has to secure the free development of the natural drives of human society. They are the natural drives which make the base of human society, or sociability. It's not just society, it's the ability to be members of society. That's why we talk about sociability or social life, simply social life. We cannot live one with the other if we do not have this securing role of the state, securing the free development of our natural drives, the drive of towards freedom, for instance. Freedom is very important, it's existential for all humans. Of course, at first we have the will to preserve ourselves, to live our lives. And we have the drive, the need to possess things in order to secure our material living. This is what the state has to guarantee peacefully. By consensus. And Locke, in this sense, believes that a social contract is essential for the constitution of political order. This is, again, a common notion between Hobbes and Locke, but the social contract, Gesellschaftsvertrag, Contrat social, the famous work of Rousseau, will come later to talk about it. Social contract is very essential, it's vital for the society, and this social contract must be based on the mutual consentment of the partners. Does not have to be simply imposed from this superior force, as it was the case with Hobbes. The individual political power of the citizens. Every citizen has a power by nature for himself, every human as such, and he has, this is the act constituting this social contract. This power is conceded to the authorities, the central authorities. It is left to them to use it according to the common interests. But there is a condition according to Locke, and this is once this condition did not exist with what Hobbes believed. Every citizen gives its individual powers to the state, but he he declares openly that the rulers have to respect the individual rights and the will of their citizens. They have to secure, they have to protect the freedom, the life and possession of every citizen, and not misuse, not destroy them in the name of the common interest of the state, for instance. And Locke believes that the appropriate form of government is the constitutional monarchy. Through this form of government, we have the political order that guarantees the application of this social contract. And this is what reality itself showed at that time. In England, we had the constitutional monarchy, the coexistence of the king, the parliament, and the government. We had the first version of what later was developed and established in the United States 1 century later, according again to Locke's doctrines, the famous balance of powers. This is what can distinguish the constitutional monarchy or a parliamentary form of government in general. If the unity of the state cannot be guaranteed in connection with the implementation of basic civil rights, then this is very interesting. In Locke, we have the right to resist, the right to make, if necessary, a revolution. Revolution in order to overthrow the rulers who do not respect our basic civil interests and civil rights. This is what Hobbes did not know in the theory, did not speak about this right to resort to the means of revolutionary upheaval because it was necessary, with his thought that it was necessary in order to guarantee a fair form of government. So this is all for now. We have completed our presentation. Hopefully you can watch it later and you can pose to me your question anytime. And hopefully you'll be able, some of you, to come to the next session live in presence next Tuesday, the 5th of November. Same time, same place. Many thanks for your attendance later, and wish you any success and any pleasure in your lives.